And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. It's me, Jake Baldino, gameranx's Resident Evil fan, and this is a big one. This is a big game. It's an attempted merger of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village style gameplay with Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4 third-person remakes. New fans, old fans, new characters, old characters. It's an ambitious thing for a franchise to really juggle. So how did they do? Long story short, pretty damn good. It's like a Resident Evil Greatest Hits album. It gives you everything you want, even if you're already extremely familiar with some of the songs. Like, I've got my issues here and there, but Resident Evil Requiem is a hell of a ride for new and old fans. And just so you know, I've been playing a review copy, and this footage is captured running on PS5 Pro. So I can't yet speak to PC or Switch performance or anything like that, but all this footage is as spoiler-free as possible. In fact, I'm probably going to show you less than some other reviews, footage-wise, because I think it's fun to be surprised. There's a lot of the game that the game's marketing and previews did not show. And I don't think it's deceptive, like they're trying to trick you into buying the game or anything. It's just to hide some genuinely good surprises. And I'm going to stick with that because I was pleasantly surprised playing, and you should definitely try and go in blind. But audio-wise, I am still going to tell you what to expect. Like, you need to be informed. You need to know what this game is. So if you are out of the loop, Requiem tells the story of Grace Ashcroft, a new character, an FBI agent, who gets swept up in some spooky chaos at the same time as Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil 2 is on the job. So what you get is like a hybrid game. You're playing a linear adventure, bouncing back and forth between two characters throughout the course of the game. You can actually swap between first and third person cameras in the settings for both Leon and Grace, but for my first playthrough, I actually stuck with what the creators intended and what was the default settings. Grace in first person and Leon in third person. This makes for a game that feels like the best parts of Resident Evil 7's dark, tense, slow survival horror in first person with Grace, and then with Leon, it basically just feels like you're playing a follow-up to Resident Evil 4 Remake. And the game does a great job balancing between the two. Like, neither character gets shortchanged, in my opinion. Plenty of gameplay for both, and I was satisfied. It can feel a little identity crisis later in the game when you're crawling around dark hallways as Grace and then switching to Leon doing the most insanely cool badass thing you've ever seen him do. But like, as much as I noticed it, I didn't really mind it. That's the magic of this franchise, in my opinion. But Grace's gameplay drops you into a few tight, well-designed, claustrophobic survival horror spaces with puzzles to figure out, weird keys and things to decipher, lots of enemies, and limited resources and inventory space. These feel like traditional survival horror moments in the best sense, and most of these sequences feel really good and very intricate, like you get to know the insides of these spaces intimately as you comb through them. The new zombie designs have creative spins to them too, like occupying spaces and roaming around, kind of engaging in zombified tasks. It's just fun to learn the ins and outs as you creep through. Now, you can stealth, like you can crouch and stealth your way through places, but it's pretty limited. You could throw glass bottles to distract enemies, but these are extremely limited as a resource, like any other survival horror item. So, be prepared to run and shoot and hide a lot. So while Grace, she's a terrified character, she's not as bumbly as you'd expect. Like, she can shoot. She can use knives as you would in the previous games, and she can also shove stunned enemies. She can be upgraded through these inventory expansion pouches, as well as syringes that will increase firepower and accuracy, or health. These can be unlocked through collecting little items and using them somewhere. They can be found in the environment, or in the syringes case, they can later on be crafted with special rare ingredients. Now, speaking of crafting, the familiar system returns, but with this new added element. You're collecting blood from fallen enemies and using it to craft extra stuff. This new resource is managed with an upgradable blood collector, and it works well enough. It's nice to use. It just means that you have to carry another thing around with you. Leon's inventory and crafting is Resident Evil 4 Remake style, and playing as him feels like stepping right back in. Only now his roundhouse kicks are contextual depending on your positioning, so he can kick enemies against walls and stuff to stun them. Along with that, he has an axe now instead of a knife, and this This just makes him pretty OP. You can swing it as a melee weapon, as you would a knife, but this thing also delivers finishing blows to stunned enemies that are just, like, awesome. It can also parry, like the knife in Resident Evil 4 Remake, and it works really well overall. You can abuse this thing quite a bit. Just every so often you need to sharpen it. You're kind of just reloading your knife. You have unlimited sharpenings, so the game just wants you to go nuts. And really, that's what Leon's sections are all about. This game is the Leon S. Kennedy show, man. The game isn't afraid to completely max out the Leon coolness, or as the kids would say, aura farm? Can I legally say that? Look, cutscenes have him like heroically posed, perfectly lit. His reload animations are badass. Like, all that stuff is here. It's like a Resident Evil 4 fan's wet dream. But thankfully with him, you also get extended sequences where you're just exploring, you're finding keys, you're doing the Resident Evil thing. You just happen to be kicking a lot of ass along the way. Leon has a pretty well fleshed out progression system too. While unfortunately he doesn't have a cool vendor salesman guy to talk to this time around, there is a currency and you can spend it to buy ammo, buy new weapons, and buy upgrades. All weapons can be upgraded. Each weapon has its own screen, and then you can click on like the stock, the muzzle, the magazine, stuff like that to upgrade capacity, recoil, power, all those stats. And you can upgrade them multiple times. Plus, you can unlock little keychains for them for added extra bonuses. This is a good system, a pretty good weapon system, and it warrants a second playthrough. But I do wish there were a few cooler weapons you could take advantage of. Nothing really completely blew me away. Except for Requiem, his big old pistol that's designed to blow away BOW specifically, but the ammo is extremely limited because it's crazy overpowered. Negative time though, one of the biggest issues with the game is that it feels like it reuses some elements from Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and Resident Evil 4 remakes. Not all the time, just here and there, and it was noticeable. Some people may not notice, but if you played those games a lot, you will. Especially in one instance, it kind of reuses part of a boss battle that I noticed immediately, and I was kind of disappointed. It wasn't enough to bring down the whole experience, but I do think some people will realize this. But like I said, it didn't bring down the whole experience because the highs are just so high here, man. The game has some truly incredible, crazy moments that just like had my jaw hit the floor. Just cool, fun fan service stuff. And I'll admit, some of it tiptoes dangerously close to nostalgia bait, like member berries type stuff, but it mostly all feels earned, and I'm just happy for Resident Evil to take a little bit of a victory lap here. And story-wise, not spoiling anything, I just wish it did more with Raccoon City. As a fan since Resident Evil 1, I thought they could have picked more story fruit from that story tree, but it didn't really expand out as much as I had hoped. But that's a matter of like personal preference. You know, the game takes a few big story swings that I personally really enjoyed, but I expect some healthy, hardcore lore fan debate. Now, I finished my first playthrough in 10.5 hours. To some that sounds short, but it's in line with Resident Evil experiences, give or take. The game offers multiple difficulty modes, but that's it, unfortunately. And some of your stuff can carry over, but it's not as advanced as I'd hoped. Still, like Resident Evil 4 Remake and the other ones, it offers the main menu extras tab where you can complete challenges and gain these little currencies where you can unlock stuff like additional weapons, outfits, and stuff to warrant some replayability. So between 2-ish playthroughs, I was satisfied, and I got about 18, 19 hours of enjoyment out of this. And like I said at the start, here we only got our hands on the PS5 Pro version, so still buyer beware on the PC side and stuff like that. But on PlayStation 5, The game looked great. And I didn't have any performance issues except for one very intensive kind of cinematic action sequence. That was a bit of a bummer, but the rest of the game was totally fine. It looked really damn good, especially if you got your HDR settings like really fine-tuned and on point. There are a few areas of the game that look kind of drab. That's not a graphical thing, it's more of like an environment and art direction thing, but I'd say 80% of the game is just like gorgeous, detailed, and downright stunning to look at. I had a couple of issues with flickering textures, like catching a surface at the wrong angle would look weird, but it's a nitpick. It happened very slightly. But that's really about it. We're keeping this one short because we're running out of non-spoiler footage, but ultimately it's pretty cut and dry. Resident Evil 9 Requiem is really damn good. It's a fun, entertaining ride. It might not be quite the end-all, be-all Resident Evil game for some fans, but still, it's a celebration of everything cool in Resident Evil, and it's a really impressive showcase of how developers took the Resident Evil 7 and 8 style and mixed it with the Resident Evil classic kind of remake style. I can't believe they pulled it off. It's really cool to see. It's very impressive, but also most importantly, it's just fun. It's well paced, it's entertaining, it has some scary moments, it has some tense moments, and it has some liberating badass moments. I think fans should absolutely play through it. If you've only played the remakes, go for it. If you've only played 7 and 8, you might be confused with some of these characters, but I think you'll figure it out along the way. Either way, as someone who's been playing and been obsessed with Resident Evil since like 1997 or so, it's crazy we've come this far, and it's nice to have like a positive video game thing once in a while, am I right? But hey, that is a before you buy. You know how this goes by now, probably. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now I definitely want to hear yours. Again, try to avoid spoilers, but let me know what you think about Resident Evil 9 or just the franchise in general. Hopefully this informed you. Hopefully it filled you in. If you got any more questions for me, we'll be down in the comments as much as possible, but you can always find me on social media at Jake Baldino, and additional coverage of the game on my YouTube channel, just my name, at Jake Baldino. But clicking the like button helps us all out here. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next game, but we'll also see you in the next Resident Evil one day. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.